Welcome back to another edition of the NBA Fantasy Baller DFS edition, brought to you by ResearchFantasy.com. I am Nicholas Vlinchak, also known as Nick from CWE on all of your favorite fantasy sites. It is Friday, March 24th, 2017, and I'm here to bring you my three favorite tournament plays. Hopefully, in our background will be changing within the next week here. I'm finally getting over my sickness. I'm going to finish cleaning out the room in the house that I plan on turning into a studio. So our lovely backdrop will likely be changing within the next couple of weeks here, especially headed into baseball season. Last night was an interesting one, to say the least. I really wish Alan Williams would have stayed home sick once more, because he instead brought his diarrhea onto the court. That ended up being a very bad take on my part, as I ended up locking him across the board. I told you in previous podcasts that that's been my strategy. Take 2 to 3 guys, lock them across the board. PJ Tucker was my other guy. 25.25 at his price was totally worth it. He was just under 4K, so he hit like 6.5 time value, which is good. That's what we're searching for. Our top plays in terms of our tournament options were Brook Lopez was my favorite play. He was also everyone else's favorite play, which is why in many of the contests I was in, he had 40% ownership. He did not come through. 27-ish fantasy points depending on the site. Kept him a little, I'm trying to think, 20. If he hit 25, he was probably like 3.5x value on FanDuel, probably closer to 4 on DraftKings. Depending on how your lineup constructed, could have killed you, might not have killed you. Certainly wasn't Alan Williams bad, but not great nonetheless. Kristaps Porzingis finished with 37. Damian Lillard finished with 47. Both of those guys, the hit value didn't necessarily exceed it, but you know, a lot of the thing we're playing for in DFS, and I think what people miss sometimes, is they'll look at a guy like Lillard and say, well, he only got 47.5 points on DraftKings, which on FanDuel was probably more like 43, 42, and say, well, he didn't hit value. Well, value's all relative, because if you have a guy, let's look at one of the contests I'm in right now and see, like, Lillard was in the winning lineup. Why was Lillard in the winning lineup? Because he had one of the highest point totals of the night, and that's always going to be something that matters. The highest amount of points is going to be valuable. If Russell Westbrook hits 58 fantasy points, but he needed 70, there's still a good chance that if the value hits, Russell Westbrook's in the winning lineup. So we have to get past the mentality sometimes that you need guys to hit 5x, 6x value. You need your value plays to hit 6x value. You're looking for the KJ McDaniels, the Alex Lenz. Those were the type of guys last night. Quincy Acey, who was someone that we did mention, you know, he hit 6.5x value. PJ Tucker, 6.5x value. So, I mean, all things considered, you have to sometimes put aside that mentality that all of my guys have to hit 6x in order for me to do well. No, that's not entirely true. You need a good, stable basis to build points on, and then you need that value to pay for itself. So hopefully, I think tonight's going to be a little bit different. I do think tonight is going to be a night with 8 to 10 games on the slate, which why in the hell DraftKings decided to leave the late games off, I'm not sure. I know they've been taking a lot of crap from the fantasy base, because basketball is the only sport they don't allow late swap for, because casual players don't like it. It hurts their NBA experience. So I personally don't use it necessarily, but it would be nice to have that option available. Like, I didn't play on DraftKings for a while because I didn't necessarily want to have to sit around to change my lineup, but now that I'm a more serious daily fantasy player, like, that would be greatly appreciated. However, I do think if you rostered Carmelo Anthony or Derrick Rose last night, there's something fundamentally wrong with your DFS game. It has been stated for days now that Carmelo Anthony was going to see a reduction of minutes. You didn't think sitting was going to be part of that reduction. Derrick Rose got hurt the day before. He did play in the game after that, but like, this is a guy that's made of glass. Like, you don't think that there was a chance he was going to miss? Anyway, let's move on to tonight's picks. Our module favors guys in the vein of Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving, Chris Middleton, LeBron James, Greg Monroe, Nicholas Batum, John Wall, Miles Turner, Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday. That's kind of like the high end of the prices that our module likes tonight. I'm going to start things off with Giannis Antetekuonmpo, still under 10K as far as I know on DraftKings. I'm sorry I don't have the prices again. I've got a lot of actual work to do today. Naturally, I shouldn't be able to find Giannis on here when I want to look for him. Yeah, he's still under 10K on DraftKings. I'm going to heavily target him. Atlanta's hurting right now. They don't have good defense in place. There's nothing that they can do. There's nothing anybody can do to stop Giannis. It's all a matter of if his confidence is there and if he's fouling a lot. This is a team I do think he can get over on rather easily. We just saw him put up almost 50 points in one half. He was at 5x value at halftime. Didn't do much more. I mean, he ended up around 67 fantasy points, which you can't be disappointed. And I know that, like, when he has 50 going into half, you're hoping that he hits 100, but that's not happening. I do think he's good for another 50-point game tonight. I don't think this game is going to be a blowout, so he's someone I don't mind looking into this evening. Next up, I really like Jeff Teague, and maybe my reasoning is a little bit off here. You can call me out on it or cite evidence to the contrary, but first and foremost, he's finally coming around, all right? He was really, really a solid option. I mean, we were paying almost $8K for him at one point earlier this season, and that was with a healthy team. So he started to play poorly. We lost interest in him. Gets a good matchup against Denver here. Should be close. Denver, as far as I remember, is traveling to Indiana, so we should have all our injury news prior to the game kicking off. In lineup locks, most importantly, focusing in on Wilson Chandler potentially guarding Paul George. Chandler's an underrated defender who's actually shut some pretty good guys, including LeBron James and Jimmy Butler, down, and that's just from memory, but he's put a couple other people in their places where they haven't turned out great DFS outings. I think there's going to be a crowding to George because we've seen him putting up some really strong outings. His price is still fair. It is getting high, but I think more of this game's going to have to run through guys like Jeff Teague and Miles Turner. Teague being my favorite. I think he's like 67, 68 on FanDuel, 73 on DraftKings. That price is just too low for someone who's going to have a market advantage against Jameer Nelson at his age, and then the combination of, Will Barton, Jamal Murray after that. I think Teague's a guy who could be in the 40, 45. If everything goes swimmingly, a 50-point game is not something that he's incapable of putting together tonight. Finally, I fought with this a little bit because I saw the price. It was under 10K on DraftKings, so I wanted to go Anthony Davis, but I can't. With DeMarcus Cousins at 10K on DraftKings, 93 or 98 on FanDuel. That's just too low for DeMarcus Cousins. Yes, he missed he missed the last game against this Houston team. That's a game Solomon Hill had a monster game in. I'm assuming he's going to see high ownership because of that. People will forget that DeMarcus didn't play in that game. Prior to that, his first game with the Pelicans was against Houston. He put up 67 to 75 fantasy points, depending on the site you used him on. I don't like to look at past production as a future predictor, but it's always a good thing to see that he's succeeded against them. I think that tonight they'll have to work through him again. It's going to be one of the two of those guys. I'm putting my money on Cuz. That'll wrap it up for today. Make sure to hit subscribe. We crossed over 100, so thank you for all of your likes, subscribes. Make sure to head over to researchfantasy.com, sign up for our NBA mailing list, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at ResearchWin, and join us again tomorrow.